Good evening. I am Ronaldo. Welcome back to Tango Angeles. We are broadcasting live this evening from the mighty UBN radio and television network from the historic Sunset Gower Studios. Gilda was filmed right next door in the lot. The Nobel Prize-winning Czech novelist Milan Kundera writes about two different kinds of infinity in his book of Forgetting and Laughter. And here I will quote a passage about this from this book. Men live between the abyss of the infinitely large and the infinitely small. The journey to the smaller infinity is no less adventurous than the journey of grand infinity, and closely parallels the physicist's descent into the wondrous innards of the atom. When I read this passage, it reminded me of the two different directions or attitudes represented in tango. One is outward and the other one inward. And when we look outward and upward, we see the stars and the sun and the moon, virtually the entire universe. And this, of course, is a grand world. This would be like the Tango Mundial champions and spectacular tango performers. Their goal is to achieve the most exquisite expression of tango, pushing the physical as well as artistic limits. And if we look inward, on the other hand, there is a different universe, a much smaller universe, or at least seemingly, and the universe within. And this universe is no less exquisite. The culture of the milongueros is like this internal universe. Most milongueros are just folks. They are not always the most physically fit people. Many milongueros are nameless, at least nameless to us, as few of them travel outside of Buenos Aires. But their lives are inextricably woven into the fabric of tango and the city of Buenos Aires. And Buenos Aires, without all of these nameless milongueros, would just be another metropolis, perhaps. And these milongueros, without Buenos Aires, would just be another group of people sharing the same pastime. So the world of milongueros is like an internal, inward universe, a world within, the continuous burrowing into the roots, forever delving deeper and deeper. The tango danced by milongueros tends to be in small steps and private. It's a secret conversation between two people. It's internal. Both the outward tango of Mundial champions and artists and the internal tango of the milongueros are beautiful in their own ways. I have made no secret of which world I prefer. I prefer the interior, the private, the infinitesimal, the exquisitely subtle. But the reason I prefer the tango of the internal world could very well be the function of where I am in my life, too. I am old enough to know that going after the external glory can be wearisome and frustrating, and oftentimes not very satisfying, and sometimes even many dead ends. And I'm also old enough to know that going inward is not only accessible to me, but is deeply satisfying. Ciccio Fromboli, one of the supernovas of tango who has really pushed the physical limits of tango, himself talks about this very thing. He says in a famous interview with Milena Plebs that as a nexus between the milongueros who taught him and the next generation that follows him, he and his fellow teachers failed to pass on what they learned from the milongueros because they, the Ciccios and his fellow teachers, were crazy about creating exploring a new vein of revolution of movement. He says, as a result, his generation is responsible for not passing on the essence of tango. I see this kind of trend happening in horticulture too, by the way. Modern, scientifically bred roses do not seem to have any scent.